Now howdy everybody. Now let's talk about modes. This is something I think that gets overly complicated as well. Hopefully this simplifies things a bit from what we've learned so far. So, modes. We'll just name them and then we'll show you what they are. So, the different modes that you'll hear about are 1. Ionian, 2. Dorian, and there comes Dorian that we've talked about before. 3. Phrygian, 4. Lydian, 5. Mixolydian, 6. Aeolian, there comes Aeolian that we've talked about in minors. 7 is Locrian. So each of these modes has a different characteristic, tonal characteristics, but let's think about what they are first. What else have you noticed that had 7 different things in it? How about a major scale? How about that? Okay, so if we just did a major scale, if you remember, let's try our friend A major. That was A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp. Okay. Now, this has how many notes? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. So these ideas both have 7 things. So maybe, just maybe, they are somehow related. And indeed, they are. So this takes some knowledge of the different scales, but once you understand all your scales, all 12 scales, this should be fairly straightforward if you follow the process, okay? So it's all about asking. You can say, instead of playing out of the key of A major, you could say I'm playing out of the A Ionian mode, or A Dorian, or A Phrygian, A Lydian, A Mixolydian, A Aeolian, A Locrian. Okay? But what does that mean? So let's use our friendly letter A to figure out what that means for each of these. Now the first, and I think the easiest to make sense of, is Ionian. The Ionian mode just equals our major scale. Okay? And you'll notice there's a number beside a Ionian. Okay? A Ionian will be, I'll know that scale by asking the question, which scale has A, which major scale has A as its first note? And then just using that scale and going around and around, but stopping on A. Well, in this case, it's just A major. And so you're able to run through it from A around back to A, and it's your old friend A major scale. But now watch this. What if we ask a different question? What if we said, Okay, so that's if A starts out the scale. But now, what if we ask the question, which major scale uses A as its second note? Well, the second mode is probably going to correspond to that question, right? But how do we use that information? Okay, well, first of all, let's figure out which major scale that is. Now, we know that is G. Because if you've seen the other videos, you know the second note in the G major scale is A. Okay? So since it's 2 out of G, then we know that we're going to be using the G major scale to play out of Dorian mode. But what are we going to do? Instead of ending on G, we're just going to end on A. It's kind of, if you watch the relative minor video, same sort of thing. And so, what do we do here? Okay. For, as an example here, I'll write out the G scale and then use that to figure out a Dorian mode. Okay. So the G scale is G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, back to G, okay? Back to G. Repeats. Okay, now let's build an A. Let's start on A and build an A scale out of that, okay? So we're just going to start here and start writing the exact same things down. So our 1, we're going to have A, 1. Our 2 is going to be here, so B. C is going to be our third note. Now our fourth is going to be D. Fifth is E. Sixth is going to be F sharp. And seventh is going to be, whoops, sorry, I switched them here, didn't I? So F sharp, it's going to be 6. It's a bit messy, sorry about that. F sharp's going to be 6, and then G is going to be our 7th note, because that'll take us, so F sharp was 6, G will be our 7th, that takes us back to A if we start here at A. Okay, so that is going to equal a Dorian. Now, let's look at this scale though, and we're going to now find out why we were talking about Dorian minors versus Aeolian minors. If you go, what scale is this? Okay, is this a minor scale or a major scale? Well, let's look at the third note to find the difference. And so this is A, B, C. And so we're going to go a whole step to B, and then just a half step. Yeah. And then we're going to go, so a whole step to B, and then just a half step to C. And so that is the minor third. So this is going to be a minor scale. And in the regular Aeolian minor, what do we use here for our 6th note? We used an F. But here, we're using an F sharp. Why? Because to make something Dorian, we're pulling that scale from the G major scale. And so the G major scale uses an F sharp. And so instead of an F natural here, we're using the F sharp. And so that's what turns this from a like regular minor, a Aeolian minor, which we'll come to, into a Dorian minor. Okay? So that's where that comes from. But we can keep going, okay? Now, Phrygian. Okay? Phrygian. Let's ask ourselves, which scale has A as the, which note? Third note. Okay? Ionian was 1, so you ask yourself which scale has A as its first note, and that answer is going to be A major scale. 2, Dorian, to make that mode, which scale has it as its A, which major scale has A as its second note. Phrygian, you just ask yourself, which major scale has A as its third note? Okay? So let's do that over here. That's going to be the F major scale. So it's going to be F, G, A. So there's the A is its third note. 1, 2, 3. B flat, C, D, E. And that would bring you back to F, okay, which will be the same as that. Okay? So to build the Phrygian mode, we just, same way as we did at Dorian here, we just started at the A in the G major scale and just created the A scale directly from this, just starting at A. We do the same thing here. We start here at A, and we just go around until we get back to A. And that's going to be A Phrygian. So let's do that. So A Phrygian would be, let's start, create our 1 here. A, what would come next? B flat, C, D, E, F. Following on around. F. Come back here, this is still F. So our next note up would be G. Next up is A. Excellent. And so now you might ask yourself, how do we create a Lydian? And do we ask, do we go find the major scale that has A as its fourth note? Indeed you do. Okay, so we're going to go find the one that has A as its fourth note, and which is that? And that is going to be E major. Because remember, that's going to be E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D sharp, back to E. Okay? Okay, and what do we have here? We have A as the fourth note in the E major scale. And so if we're wanting to build a Lydian, all we have to do is go to the E major scale, which we know already, and start counting until we get back around to A. So here's what we would build. We'd go A, B, C sharp, D sharp, C sharp, D sharp, E, F sharp, G sharp, and brings us back to A. and back around. So this would be a Lydian mode. Lydian is famous for having this difference. If you notice a Ionian, just A major, that we talked about before, A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp. What's the difference here? It's this 4. So see, the 4 in A major, common A major, is D, and Lydian is going to have a sharp 4 note. That's the 4th note is going to be sharp compared to regular old A major. So that's how we're going to do that. Now, which one would be Mixolydian? Okay. In Mixolydian, we have to ask which note has A as its 5th note. And which one's going to be that? All right, so we know that that's going to be D major scale. So it's going to be D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, and D, and back around. And so what do we find here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The 5th note in the scale here is going to be A. And so we know if we build an A scale based off of D major's notes, we're going to be creating A mix a Mixolydian. And so let's do that. Let's just start at A and run through a D scale. D major. So A is 1, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G natural, and that brings us back to A. And this is by far Mixolydian, the one you'll hear about the most in bluegrass music because of this thing right here. Let's compare it to our A major scale, and what do we have? It's going to be exactly the same except for the 7th. And so this uses what you'd say is a flattened 7th note as compared to the A major scale. So let's go up here. A major scale has a G sharp. If you flatten that a half step, it would go to G. And that's what we find here in this Mixolydian, A Mixolydian. And so you'll find that a lot, you'll hear that a lot, but all that means is that you're just flattening the 7th note. So you don't have to think about this. If you ever hear about playing out a Mixolydian mode, you don't have to go through all this trouble. All you really have to remember in Mixolydian mode, this mythical thing, is that you go to the 7th note of your major scale and you flatten it a half step. And so this is what we're talking about in Old Joe Clark, so much bluegrass. I mean, it is just ubiquitous, and you'll definitely come across this term, but just don't be scared by it. Now, here's a super important one as well. Aeolian. Okay? So here we have to ask ourselves, Aeolian is 6. So which major scale uses A as its 6th note? Okay? Well, that's C major. Okay? C major does that. And if we write out C major, we have C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and then that brings us to C. Let me go back around, okay? And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So our A is in the 6th position here. So we're correct so far. And so if we want to write out Aeolian, we do the exact same thing. We just start out here by following this pattern on around until we get back to A. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. A, and back around. But what do we have there? This is a minor. If you look back at our previous lessons where we were learning the patterns to make a minor chord, this is the prototype. This is the as Aeolian mode. Okay? Aeolian, which is a minor sound, will be these notes here. Okay? And just convince yourself of that. That's why it's called Aeolian minor, because that's the mode that it comes from. And that's just the way it is. 7, Locrian. Let's just do this just to be complete. So, which note, which scale has A as its 7th note? Okay, so that's going to be B flat, because those notes are B flat, B flat, C, D, E flat, F, G, A. And so if we count up, this is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we're knowing that we're in the right major scale. And so it's going to be a bit scrunched over here, but we can do this. So A Locrian will be using the B flat major scale, but just ending on A. So let's start at A, ending and starting on A. So let's start on A, and then we go around B flat, C, D, E flat, F, we'll keep going, G, takes us back to A, okay? So sorry to Locrian there, but honestly, it's not very useful. Anyway, especially getting started out. So the main ones to focus on here, the ones that are really important: Ionian, which is just your major scale; Dorian, which is one of the minors. And it's a very simple difference between Dorian and Aeolian minor. So that also brings up Aeolian minor, which I'd say, especially starting out, is, first in importance would be Ionian mode. Second importance is Aeolian. And then Mixolydian is also uber important, just because of that flatted 7th. And then Dorian as well, just because it's a fun minor, a little bit different sound. But you can, once you learn these various scales, you can play through each of these modes. So if you know, for instance, if you know A major scale, good old A major scale, you can play A Ionian mode. Once you learn G, okay, all you got to do is start on A and play through a G scale, and you'll be playing A minor Dorian. If you want to play in A Phrygian mode, just to hear how that sounds, so weird, but fun, start on an A, and you've learned an F scale, okay? Just start on the A note in the F scale and play through back to A, and that'll be Phrygian. 4, Lydian. Then Lydian, you'll be using the E major scale. And so just go to your E major scale, start on an A, play A to A, Lydian. Same way with Mixolydian. Go to D major scale, start on your A, play through till you get back to A. That'll be your Mixolydian sound. Aeolian, go to your C major scale, start on A, play through back to A, Aeolian minor. And Locrian, it's an experience. Just go to your B flat and play through A to A and through the B flat major scale, and that'll be your Locrian mode. So I hope that helps clarify what these things are. It always comes back to just the numbers and the letters. you know, the alphabet and the numbers. So those are modes, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.